I was developing the character, and the various writers saw the way I was playing, and they got their own ideas, Terence and others, of how I was playing the part. They, therefore, I wouldn't need to change lines, because they knew who the character was by then. But not to start with, I didn't. I wouldn't have dared to, I don't think. But once I'd got into the character, I thought, how would this be? I always check with obviously the producer and the scriptwriter first. If they said no, then I didn't do it. But mostly, they often said, yeah, that's okay. I mean, not huge scenes being right, not so we get in the way of rehearsal time, which was always limited. But, you know, the thing in Three Doctors when, you know, he thinks he's in Cromer, in Norfolk, and he's not, he's on another planet. But he meant it when he said it. He really thought it was. You must do it with a straight face, not trying to get a laugh. You see? I don't know.
Yeah, reality.
Yeah.
Sometimes, though, I have experienced, not necessarily when I've been at the helm, but a kind of greater affinity between an actor and the producer rather than the individual director, which I think probably any director that goes into EastEnders, say, must think, well, you know, I better listen to God upstairs rather than this guy on the deck.
Sure.
You must have experienced that in all manner of programs, but did you ever feel in any way that you were kind of, well, did you feel that initially you were like the director's pet, and then you became the producer's pet?
Well, that's very accurate, because I suppose it was a director who obviously is very responsible for the Brigadier, which is Douglas Camfield. I mean, I'd worked for Douglas in Great Pine and Dark Master Plan, and then he you know, Web of Fear. So the director, obviously, yes, I felt it was the director who picked me, Douglas Camfield, 3 times. I did a thriller with him as well. So therefore, it was the director who was probably the closest person to me. But once you get into a series as a regular character like Anu, then you're bound to get to know the producer, and the producer gets to know him. And I suppose for an actor, yet probably, can apply to any medium, the director and the writer are probably the two most important people to me as an actor, the director and the writer. If I like the director, like the writing, then I think I'm home and dry. I mean, obviously, it's lovely if you've got nice people with the cast as well, and a producer, etc. That's all a bonus. But probably initially, the people I would be most interested to know about would be the director. Indeed, that's the most important person to me as an actor, and above all, the writer, because the writer is pretty important, and most important.
Now, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to think about it, and we'll take a few from the floor, and then come back to the question. Now, the question is not necessarily Doctor Who based, and I'm not going to ask you favourite monster, favourite story, favourite Doctor. Out of your colossal career, what was your favourite job? And I don't mean in terms of lucrative possibilities or, you know, or whatever. I don't want to say, oh, Doctor Who, because I had 30 years work out of it, or, you know, still doing
managers.
I want you to actually think about what was your favourite job. If you can't make it in one, give me a top 3.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, I can. Okay.
Now, do you want to think about that?
Yes, for a moment or two.
Right.
I'm nearly there, but a little pause might be very good. Yes.
We'll take 3 questions, shall we?
Yes, that's fine, absolutely. Whatever.
Oh, gentleman in the middle.
Can we see? I know.
Can we have a bit of light?
Just a bit of light for the moment.
Put the rainbows on. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, it was great that, because then we created a family, my daughter, you know, why she got fed up grandson, which
Did,
I had.
did your original Dickensian description include a son and a daughter, out of interest?
Oh, well no, because Mark wrote that, didn't he? Mark Platt. I'm sure I wrote down something. Mark had done it, and Mark and I got to know him quite well. So he provided, again, the writer provided that for me, I think. He worked out the Brigadier's daughter, you know, played by Beverly, and little Gordy. So Mark did that for me, I think, really.
But you hadn't...
I haven't thought, no.
When
no.
you were devising your background?
Oh, originally, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, no. Well, when I started playing Wrigley, no. I knew I had first wife, Fiona, and second wife, Doris, that came later. But that all came, it was rather light to my own life, because actually I had been married twice anyway.
Well, I was about to say that.
That's all right. Yeah.
It's terrifying, actually, that what's
Well, I know.
on the telly is actually...
yeah.
The Brigadier is you, and you are the Brigadier.
Absolutely, yes, that's right.
2 wives, 1 son, 1 daughter.
2 wives, 1 son, and 1 daughter.
And 1 grandchild.
2 wives. Well, did the Brigadier have a son? Did the Brigadier have a son?
Well, you just said, well, that gentleman said...
He had a daughter. No, he
a daughter.
He had a grandson, yeah. Actually, I think there was a script once where I think the Brigadier had a son. But yes, it's a curious coincidence that. It was. And again, a strange coincidence that my father, he was married twice too. He had 2 wives.
The only difference is that the real person, Mr. Courtney, lives in Crouch End, and the Brigadier didn't.
And the Brigadier didn't. No, he didn't. He lived in somewhere, I don't know where he lived, the Brigadier. Either Unit HQ, or the Mess, or in Denham, big house in Battlefield or something. He must have got a terrific handshake from the government for that. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe he had a private income. I don't know.
Another question. Gentleman on the front row.
Hi, Nick, did you enjoy working with Harry Hill?
Yes, very much so. That was lovely. That was very fortuitous the way that happened. He sort of booked me, and when I asked for a photograph, I did about 2 days' work. He sort of said, "Thank you for doing this and all that." And he'd been a fan of the show, I presume a fan of the Brigadiers, I suppose, to incorporate it. And when I asked him for a photograph afterwards, I said, "I'm just signing money for charity." He really meant it. He said,